Hi everyone, it's Nick. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Okay, in this video today, we are going to be talking about interior design trends that deserve a comeback. This is not necessarily trends that I think are making a comeback. This is just sort of a bit of a wish list of design trends that I've seen in the past, whether they're from, 17th, 18th century, all the way to like 1950s, 60s, 70s, even like the 80s and 90s, which there were some questionable choices in the 80s and 90s, but there were some real gems there and some really great design choices that people were making that I think can be brought back in, even if they're not super popular right now, but they deserve a chance to be brought back into a more modern setting and more modern designs. And that's what we're gonna be talking about today. Okay, so my first interior design trend that I think deserves a comeback is going to be saturated color. So there was a time, I think, where people took a lot more risks and had a lot more fun with really bold, cool, crazy, awesome color, right? We saw that was really popular in kind of the 50s, the 60s, even the 70s. People used a lot more, okay, you can go way back, you can go to the 20s, you can go to Art Deco and how much color there was there. I think there was a lot more use of sort of really saturated color. And I wanna be clear about what I mean by that because, although we have seen the use of color today, a lot of the colors that are being used tend to be quite desaturated. So we bring out the old color wheel. So you're taking kind of that primary hue and you're either adding black, white, and gray, and you're creating something that's a lot more towards a neutral, or maybe even quite a bit more toned down. So when you add gray to the primary hue, like say a color red, by toning it down, you're creating something that feels very dusty and almost sort of desaturated. And that is very, very popular right now. You're seeing a lot of neutrals that are being used, and you're seeing a lot of really desaturated color choices. And those tend to be the ones that are the most popular right now. But I just sort of feel like we kind of had the all white room era, and then the all gray room era, and then sort of these like black rooms where everything was really dark and black, which were kind of cool and really sexy and awesome. And then we kind of got like this beige room, and I just sort of feel a little bit like, are we really just gonna kind of go back and forth between these four sort of neutral palettes forever? Or maybe, call me crazy, we can start to go back to adding a little bit more color into our lives. And again, for the record, I actually do like a lot of these neutral spaces. I think they are really beautiful, but I would love to see people experiment a little bit more with color, have a little bit more fun. And again, I'm not talking those dusty, toned down, grayed out sort of colors. I'm talking about having fun with really bold, saturated, in your face, unapologetic color. Now we are seeing some of this in like a maximalist design style, which is really, really cool. I do think that it's really interesting what a lot of maximalists are sort of doing with color, because again, it's just really out there and in your face, and I can totally respect that even if it's not my style. I do think it's a little bit much for a lot of people, so I would love to see sort of a pared down maximalist where someone's maybe not going quite that far, but is still making sort of interesting and creative design choices with a little bit more color than we've seen in the past. I sort of feel like there's two things happening right now. I'm seeing these spaces that are super maximalist and kooky and crazy, and then I'm seeing these all neutral, elegant spaces. What happened to that room in between where you could just have a beautiful, elegant space that was awesome and functional, not necessarily chaotic like some maximalist spaces can be, but maybe just uses a little bit more color? Just say like dial up that blue, right? Have a little bit more fun there. Play with yellow, right? Play with red and orange and green and all these different colors, and don't just stick to sort of the really sort of neutral, desaturated versions. Amp them up and have a little bit of fun with some of that saturated color. I would love to see that come back. Let's make it happen. Okay, next up on my list is going to be parquet flooring. So what is parquet flooring? Well, okay, so parquet flooring, if you're from the 70s or 80s or 90s, or like you remember all this stuff, then you're gonna be like, oh, I remember it, because you're gonna see it and be like, yup. I had a friend who had a kitchen that was like this, or they had a den, or maybe they had a basement that had parquet flooring. Now, strictly speaking, in terms of terminology, parquet flooring is really just like any small sort of wood design, like in flooring, that is cut in a sort of pattern that sort of repeats itself. So herringbone and chevron are examples of parquet flooring. And although those have been quite trendy for a little while, and those have been really fun, the one I really want to talk about is that sort of 1970s, kind of 60s actually, sort of parquet flooring that you see. That's that typical sort of checkerboard 3 or 4 or 5 bar pattern that I think is actually really cool. And I think so many people have either covered them up with like luxury vinyl plank or gotten rid of them. And I think that's such an error. I think they're actually so much fun. And I just think any wood flooring is great. I'm a huge lover of hardwood flooring of any sort of type. I think whenever you use sort of a natural natural wood flooring, it always instantly warms up a space and makes it feel really sort of comfortable and inviting. It is a hard surface, which I'm gonna get to another alternative to that in a second here, but I will still say that like hardwood flooring just adds that warmth and that natural element to a space that always makes it feel really warm and inviting to me. And so parquet flooring sort of just became synonymous with kind of a 70s and 80s look that a lot of people sort of rejected and just kind of went nope and just kind of walked away. And again, they covered it up with like luxury vinyl plank, or maybe they ripped it up completely, which is such a shame because depending on the quality of the wood that you used, they can be refinished, they can be resurfaced, whatever, and they can actually be made to be really beautiful again. I don't know if anybody's really installing parquet flooring new. I haven't really seen a whole lot of images of people doing that. I'd love to see it because really there's tons of different patterns out there, not just sort of chevron and herringbone that are out there that are really beautiful and you can maybe take a look at and see that might make sense for your own home in big ways, like a whole living room could be super cool, or even in small ways, like something like in an entrance hallway or something like that could be really beautiful. So I love parquet flooring. I think it's something that when people see it, they're like, oh my God, that just feels like the 70s. And it is, but it is also really cool. Maybe some of you even have this in your own home and you're just like, hey, what do I do? I'm thinking about ripping it up. Don't rip it up. It's actually really cool. Just take care of it and bring it back to life a little bit. And that's also one of these things, is sort of these older trends that can be brought back in. It's not just like your space is going to look like it's straight from the 70s if you have parquet flooring. It's about bringing that in and mixing it in with some of the more modern elements to sort of update it a little bit. Okay, next up on my list is going to be wood paneling. Now, wood paneling is one of the options I think in the design world is still kind of a little bit making a comeback, but I haven't really seen it sort of hit the mainstream for most homeowners. And again, this is straight out of the sort of 70s, I would say, although any of you people, the 80s babies that remember seeing wood paneling on the walls, even though it might be sort of very much a holdover of the sort of 70s, it still feels very 80s to me, just because people, again, didn't renovate their houses all that often. So it was still very, very popular as a kid when I was growing up that people would have wood paneling in like a rec room or a basement or something. Just think like, you know, Stranger Things, like Joyce Byers' house, like that's to me what I think of when I think of wood paneling. I love wood paneling, kind of like the parquet floors I just talked about. I just think it adds a touch of warmth to a space. It can be done in really sort of gorgeous, interesting patterns, but it can also be done as just a really interesting way to sort of warm up a space by putting it directly on the walls. I love it. I think it is so, so cool. And again, it just brings a really interesting, natural warmth to a space, which I just really, really love. And I'm kind of sad that it hasn't really come back. I would say that a lot of the stuff that was done, I think in the 70s, might have not really been the greatest quality. And I think that cheapened sort of wood paneling for a lot of people. Because I think over time, what tends to happen is when you use really poor quality materials, they start to look horrible after a little bit. They start to wear. That's just the reality. Like if you use higher quality stuff, it wears in oftentimes rather than wears out. And I found a lot of those wood paneling start to really wear out in the 70s. So it's no wonder that when everybody put in all this really cheap materials in the 70s and even into the 80s, that it started to look very tired very quickly and people started taking it out of their homes because, you know, it really started to show its age. But I think if you're investing in more quality materials, which I think is what I'm seeing a lot more of nowadays from a lot of the designs that I've seen, then I wouldn't necessarily feel like this is going to make your space look dated. I feel like it's going to, again, add that natural warmth to a space that I think can actually be gorgeous and make for a really beautiful home. I think I would love to see just wood paneling being brought in sort of really intentional, interesting ways. So say you've got like a little niche where you're going to put maybe a desk with an office chair or something like that, putting some like a wood slat wall or putting some wood paneling behind that really intentionally, I think makes a lot of sense. I think also another problem with how we did it in the 70s was maybe it just felt really, really heavy because everything was clad in wood paneling, right? And it had very much sort of a cabin in the woods sort of feel, but veneered. And sometimes that felt maybe a little bit heavy and a little bit suffocating. So I think now people are doing it in a little bit more intentional ways. And again, hopefully using some sort of higher quality natural materials that are going to not look as dated, I think, as some of the veneered stuff that started to sort of chip and peel after a while. I think wood paneling gets sort of a bad reputation because it sort of harkens back to that sort of 70s and 80s sort of era. But I think there's been enough distance from that now that we can bring it back and just kind of create that natural warmth, cozy feel that you really only get from wood. And I really would love to see that come back more in the future. Okay, next up is going to be interesting ceiling treatments. Okay, so ceilings are, I'm going to say, the most underutilized surface in people's homes, right? People care a lot about their flooring. They care a lot about what they put on the walls. And then everybody, including myself, I'm bad for this, just paints their ceiling white. And that's what everybody does. But that wasn't always true. I think when you really go back, and I'm talking like 17th, 18th century, people did a lot more interesting things with their ceilings, and I would love to see that brought back a little bit more. So people put more wallpaper on their ceilings. They painted their ceilings. They had really interesting things like ceiling medallions. I could honestly talk like for a while about ceiling medallions, which are just honestly so beautiful. They're probably not really made of plaster, but back in the day, that's what they used to do, is used to hire a person and they would plaster these ceiling medallions onto your space and they would look absolutely gorgeous. They actually really served sort of a functional purpose. I think back then it was really a way to sort of hide, before we had electricity, I think it was kind of a way to sort of hide the soot. That's what I've read. Anyway, no, I don't know. Don't come here for me. I should cite my sources, but I'm pretty sure that's what they were for. But they were also aesthetically pleasing. And I think they just really added such character to a ceiling, and they really just sort of elevated a lighting fixture to just pop and just be really, really gorgeous and beautiful. And I love that. And I think so many different eras in the past, we used to do so many really cool things. Even crown molding. Crown molding, when spaces were bigger, used to be so much more popular than it is now. A lot of people just forget about crown molding. Like, I don't have crown molding here. And a lot of people just don't ever put in crown molding. And I get it, but I also think that crown molding can also be really beautiful, and I would love to see more of it. But there's also other beautiful things too, like coffered ceilings are really gorgeous. Tin tile is really interesting. Like, that was something that people used to use that you just don't really see anymore. So just a lot more interesting detail work being done on the ceilings that I don't feel like is really as common anymore. I don't know if it's because, kind of like the color conversation that we had earlier, that people are just more looking for really simple and kind of clean lines and more basics, and not really looking for sort of interesting, intricate detail, which I get because like I myself prefer kind of a simple, clean line sort of space. That's sort of my style, but I can still appreciate that the old way used to be really cool, and they used to do some really interesting things to their ceilings. And so I would love to see that being brought back in more interesting ways, because right now ceilings are looking a little bare, a little bland, myself included. Yes, I hear you. Don't come at me in the comment section. You're like, your ceiling's not that interesting. I know, but I still think that just because I don't have it doesn't mean I don't enjoy looking at it. So I want to see other people do beautiful things with your ceilings. So go have at it and let me see it on Instagram. Let's do it. Come on, do something with your ceiling. Paint it at least. Come on, let's just have a little bit of fun. Okay, next up is going to be, and this is going to be the most controversial of the video, I guarantee you, is going to be carpet. So carpet. Carpet. I talked about carpet at my, what did I talk about? Like, I can't really remember, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, I talked about it in our video, and I said then, unpopular design opinion, that's what it was because I think carpet can be really great in some rooms, and I think here in North America, the new trend has been, of course, towards hardwood, and I get it, I love hardwood too, like I've just mentioned several times in this video, I understand, but carpet does have a really great purpose in people's homes. And I would love to see less aversion to carpet. Now, I will say on TikTok one time, like, I think there's a TikToker who said that I said that North Americans don't have carpet in their rooms, and people tore me apart on TikTok's mean, you guys. Like, I'm just gonna say, TikTok people are mean. I thought this new generation was supposed to be really nice and like sweet and was supposed to love everybody. No, they're freaking mean on the TikTok. Anyway, and everybody said like, no, Nick is stupid. Of course we have carpet in the bed. I know we have carpet in people's bedrooms, but what I am saying is that the trend over the last 20 years has been away from carpet towards things like hardwood and tile and things like that. And that's fine, I get it. But I do still think that carpet serves a real purpose, and we've sort of kind of got this ew carpet sort of mentality here in North America, or at least have been in the design sort of community in the last 20 or so years. And carpet is controversial, but I do think that carpet is great for areas like a kid's room, like a nursery, like a basement. It's great for soundproofing. Carpets, just think of them as a rug, but wall to wall, you know? Like, carpets can be kind of, I wouldn't say cool, I'm not gonna go that far, but carpets can can be functional and they can also be beautiful. They can be cozy, they can warm up a space because again, the soundproofing, right? We're able to absorb sound in a way that hardwood's just gonna bounce the sound off. So it really makes a space feel warm and comfortable and cozy. And carpet does a really great job of dealing with that. So if you've got babies or toddlers, or you think you might have babies or toddlers one day or whatever, basements, honestly, like carpets can be really comfortable and really cozy and warm. And I think people hate on carpets. Well, there's reasons. Like I get why people don't love carpet, but I think in certain rooms and for certain circumstances, carpet can be great. And I do think that it deserves a comeback in specific situations. And I am starting to see that maybe a little bit. And I have seen some really modern examples of some beautiful uses for carpet in people's homes. I think we should have less of an aversion towards it in the design community and realize that it is actually a good material to use in specific circumstances. And it deserves a bit of a comeback. Not in the bathroom though, never in the bathroom. Don't do it in the bathroom. That's horrible. Don't ever do that. That's sacrilegious. But I would say in certain circumstances, it can actually work pretty well. So, you know, consider the carpet. It deserves a bit of a comeback. A bit of a comeback. Okay, that's it for me for today, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video. I'm gonna link here to my video on trends that are making a comeback. So that's kind of a little bit of my prediction of like trends that I'm sort of seeing coming down the road and ones that maybe people are actually already using. This was a bit more of a wish list, but let me know what you think and subscribe, comment, do all those lovely things, or don't, that's cool too. And I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks, bye.